Well, we're so blessed today now to be able to take some time to talk to two ladies that represent Wonderfully Made, a powerful organization here in Oklahoma City that really has a multi-pronged approach to ministry throughout the Oklahoma City area. And we're going to have a chance to hear a little bit about what they're doing and how their role is going to be effective in our community as well. So will you help me welcome Lisa and Ciante today. Lisa, it's good to have you with us again today. Lisa, nice to meet you and great to have you today. Well, Lisa, we've got some things going on at Wonderfully Made. Tell us, first of all, if you don't mind, I want both of you maybe just tell a brief little introduction to where you raised in Oklahoma. Did you grow up here? Are you from here? And how you got connected to this organization? And maybe just give us a little introduction.
Yes, my name is Miller-Baldwin, and I did grow up here in Oklahoma City. I've been born and reared here all of my life. Wonderfully Made came about as a journey for me. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and through my journey, I didn't know who I was. I felt unloved. I had low self-esteem. I went through much of which most victims go through in terms of finding out who they are. Sure. So one of the things that God imparted in my spirit and in my heart was Psalms 139:14. I will praise thee, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And he told me, he gave me a mandate. Just as I feel, be that for someone else. Provide them that hope and that inspiration that they too can survive.
That's awesome.
And so Wonderfully Made Foundation was formed because of that hope.
That's awesome. And Ciante's here with you today. She's an assistant to the executive director. Ciante, tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
I grew up in Muskogee, Oklahoma, which is about 2 hours away from here. I came up here to go to University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond. I lived in Oklahoma City for a little while. I live in Norman now, and I work here in Oklahoma City with Miss Lisa. How I came to be a part of the organization, I had a friend actually Facebook me because I do graphic design work, and she was like, I know a lady who needs someone to do flyers. And so I thought that's all it was going to be. And then in the interview, we knew that God ordained for us to meet each other because her testimony and things that she's been through are things that I grew up witnessing. And so we had so much in common, and we just knew that it was a God thing. And so I'm just blessed, really, really blessed to be doing something that is important, and I can call it my career. It's not just a job, it's something I love to do, and I'm fortunate to be a part of. So that's how God brought me to Wonderfully Made.
That's great. Now, Wonderfully Made Foundation has multiple things that you're involved in.
Yes,
so
sir.
Go ahead and give us the landscape, and then we'll come back and kind of narrow our focus to one or two.
Thank you. The Wonderfully Made Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and some of the programs that we offer is that we have a 90-day transitional housing program for women and children that are homeless. It's a small homeless shelter. We serve 4 families. Right now, our ratio is 8 children, 4 adults. In addition to that, we provide classes on site that our hope is to empower families while they're there, not just provide housing, but give them some tools that will empower them to live a more successful life. So in addition to that, we have a clothing closet that we provide clothing for the less fortunate. We also have our Empower Teens program where we educate on teen dating violence. So we've been out in the community to various high schools with our Empower Teens program, and thus far we have reached over 3,000 high school students with our program.
That's great.
That's very dear, being that that's one of my heartstrings is domestic violence awareness.
Sure.
And we also have a online magazine, and it's called Empowered Online Mag, and where we provide different resources in the community that will educate and inform readers.
You also have a production, right?
Yes. Also, forgot about that. Thank you. We also have a production aiming to bring awareness to domestic violence in a theater approach. In an entertaining approach, and it's entitled Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Most recently, it was translated in Spanish, so it's entitled Espejito, Espejito. And so it premiered here not long ago as being the first Hispanic stage production here in the state of Oklahoma.
That's awesome. What a tremendous impact. You know, you said something in covering the landscape, and I want to talk about the abuse factor in the marriage relationships and adult relationships. But you said something that does trigger a factor to me, and that was the dating abuse, because I see it happen a lot of times that it starts there, that young girl has a low self-esteem, the young man, maybe he didn't know how to communicate well, he saw models in the home that were not healthy models in the home. Don't you think that a lot of adult abuse starts in that dating relationship?
Absolutely, because we're a product of our environment, and so if mom demonstrates it's acceptable, then you tend to think it's acceptable. And I can affirm from my personal experience, because my mom was also a victim of domestic violence. So it made it a little bit more acceptable for me. So one of the things that I did was I wrote a curriculum for our teens, and it's entitled, I Like You, But I Love Me More. So it's very important that you know who you are, and you're not defined by what anyone says about you or what they do to you, but you're defined by what God says about you. So that's very critical, I feel, with teens and adults, not really just teens, but with adults as well, to know who you are. Because when you really have a clear picture of who you are, there's certain relationships you would not accept or even enter.
Right. And education is a great empowering tool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Ciante, you're still relatively new to the organization because of your pathway, but just in first glance, in your first impressions of what you've been seeing through the organization, what stands out to you as some of the high points and maybe some of the things that you see that you're excited about within the organization?
For me, I spend a lot of time working in the office, so I get a lot of calls from women and children who are in need. And just people in the community who are in great need of things. So for me, the highest point is that we are actually doing something to help. And although we only help 4 families at a time, we help 4 families at a time. And so it's just awesome to be able to, take a family in who they don't have family to support them. And I'm 26, and some of these young ladies are younger than me, and they have children, but they have nowhere to go. And so for me, a high point is just being able to help them. And not only the residents that we actually get to take in, but the ones that we provide other resources to. We tell them other people who may be able to help when we can't. And with our clothing closet, a lot of times people take for granted just a coat or a sweater or jeans, not being able to buy that, not having that, or you have the same pair for the last 5 years, but being able to help a family. We had a family come in, a young lady has 6 children, and we had just received a donation of coats, and so she got to get a coat for each one of her kids. And so for me, it's those times that make it worthwhile to be able to do this, because sometimes it's so heartbreaking because we can only serve 4 families at a time, that a lot of times we have to turn people away and refer them out. But when we can do something like that, just to help a family, to give them coats, they'll be warm, because we know Oklahoma winters can be really crazy. So just a coat, those simple things that we're able to do, just to know that I'm making a small impact, it's just awesome. It just makes me feel fulfilled. Me and Miss Lisa talk about it all the time, how it's not dreadful to get up and come to work, like just hop up on Monday mornings, and I can say I get to go do something that is helping someone, that is impacting, that's changing their lives, and also that we are Christians, we get to show them the love of Christ, and more than just doing something for them, but our heart not being in it, and they can tell that well, they're doing it, but they don't really care. But no, we get to show them how much we really care and how much God really cares for them. That He would provide a coat, that He would provide housing, something like that. So to me, it's just awesome, just being able to help, just being able to help.
Well, the shelter that you're providing, even as you said, just for 4, but it is 4. But don't you find that sometimes, and maybe I'm misinformed, so help me, but I find that many times maybe women will stay into relationships because they don't have an alternative place to restart, a shelter to protect them, coats for their kids, so they're willing to take abuse for themselves to try to provide for their kids. Do you see that as a reoccurring theme?
Absolutely, and one of the things, and you pointed that out, information is critical, and those resources made available, so women can have that tool to say, hey, I can get out of this and I can get out safely. So it's a couple of organizations that provide wonderful resources. If women want to get out of abusive relationships, the YWCA is, oh my God, they're awesome in providing housing for women and children that are victims of domestic violence. There's Women Resource Center in Norman that also provides housing for women and children in abusive relationships. So there's great resources. I can think of 2 organizations that also provide resources for perpetrators of domestic violence. Family Builders do great work that work with men and their aggression and their anger issues. Family Builders, and also COPE Services. So there's tools and resources for individuals that are wanting to better themselves in harmful or angry situations that potentially could get violent.
Have you found that, obviously as a nation, there's been some economic challenges that over the last several years that, Oklahoma's been somewhat blessed by the fact that our unemployment rate is not as high as others, but there's still the unreported unemployment. We know all those statistics that are out there. But do you find that when the economy is bad, that kind of adds fuel to the fire, so to speak?
Absolutely, because we have limited resources. And when people have limited resources or skill sets or lack of education, some of those things are not just readily available. And so organizations like Wonderfully Made Foundation and some of the other shelters and nonprofits all across the state become swarmed with phone calls because everything that you just said. Just limited resources available.
So when you're dealing with, take us through the process. Maybe I'm a victim of abuse and I make that first phone call. What are some of the first things that you would try to do to guide me through this process?
One of the first things that I would want to do would be to find out if you're immediately in danger. Because if you're immediately in danger, you need to hang up and contact the YWCA. Because they have a 24-hour hotline that can walk you through the processes in order to leave safely. Because that's one thing, and I will never tell a victim to just leave. Because oftentimes you hear the world or society say, why doesn't she just leave? Well, there are some factors to consider upon leaving. So you want the person to leave safely. So the YWCA have there's a Safe Line hotline number, 1-800-522-SAFE. The YWCA also has a hotline number, and I believe that's 917-9922. And so those are organizations that have been trained and staffed in order to accommodate those types of calls and to assist individuals in leaving a violent situation safely.
Now, I don't want to make this a misunderstood statement. I'm just asking a question.
Yes.
Is there a disproportionate amount of African Americans or Latinos or whites? Do you see that there's one pocket that seems to be more challenged with this domestic abuse issue?
No. Domestic violence does not discriminate. It affects every ethnicity, and that's one of the heartstrings that Wonderfully Made had in introducing Espejito, because we knew there was another ethnicity that was impacted by domestic violence. It affects us all. In every socioeconomic status, it affects. We receive phone calls from a wide array of different individuals, and we refer them to the appropriate sources that they can provide those support systems. So
Ciante, if just in the short window that you've been here with Wonderfully Made Foundation, if there was some things that you say, I wish the community knew about what was available or what we could do to help them, what comes to your mind with that?
I wish the community knew, just like Ms. Lisa was saying, all the different resources. There's so much help out there that before I became a part of Wonderfully Made, I was like, I had no idea Oklahoma City offered this. I didn't know how many shelters we have. There are 9 different shelters here in Oklahoma City. I had no idea. And I would like to just encourage the community, because there are 9 shelters, and we get calls all the time that these shelters are full. By the time they've called us, they've called so many other people. So if I could encourage anyone, I would say that if God has placed it on your heart to open a nonprofit, to start, that we're not the only ones that have to do this, that anyone, because there are so many people who need help. And the people that we serve are women and children. And in Oklahoma, that's the fastest growing demographic of homelessness. It's not always the old man with the beard on the street. These are families who are just hopping from place to place. They have nowhere to go. So I would like to encourage everyone that if they can, if God has placed it in their heart to start a business, to start a shelter, to start a nonprofit, to offer any type of resources, that they should go ahead and do that. Don't wait. Like, allow God to lead them now, because there are people who are hurting who need their help right now.
Pastors that may be listening are parishioners of congregations, and they're saying, maybe there's something that we as a church, even if it's just on an educational basis, because as you mentioned a moment ago, I knew the answer that abuse is across the board. It's not ethnically driven, but at the same time, it's not exempt from the church either. There's as much going on in the church as there is outside the church.
Absolutely. And I think that's a demographic that is kind of hush-hush. because in the church realm, we know it's not to occur. So it's kind of hush-hush. And one of the things that I would encourage pastors to do is to provide those resources.